Welcome everyone to our community flood update. Can I start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we're meeting on today, paying my respects and our respects to their elders, both past, present and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge and respect their continuing cultures and the memories of their ancestors. So today's update is going to cover, I guess, more in the recovery space, and we've got a number of guest speakers that will take us through that. Welcome to Teresa Jayet, who's the Mallee Family Care Chief Executive Officer, who will be talking about the supports that are available, particularly from a mental health and social perspective. We've also got Daryl Morgan, who's the Acting General Manager of Development, to talk a little bit about the clean-up and the processes of how we're tackling the levy situation. And we also have Andrew Millen, who's the Manager of Development Services, to talk a little bit about the health impacts that are happening, particularly around different aspects of the flood situation around mosquitoes and some of the things you might be seeing in your home. So we've also got a video presentation from Angela Carey, who's the Emergency Recovery Victoria Regional Director. And Angela will talk a little bit more about the broader plan from recovery from a state perspective. So this is an online forum, so there is an opportunity for you to put comments and so forth and provide some feedback, so please don't hesitate to do that, and we'll try and do what we can to answer those questions. So first off, over to Teresa from Mallee Family Care to give us a bit of an overview of the mental health supports that are available and the role Mallee Family Care plays in the flood recovery.
Thank you, Martin. I guess the first thing to say is everything that Mallee Family Care has to offer is free. And there's also no requirement to be referred to any of our mental health and wellbeing supports that are available here in Mildura. Our office is located at 122 9th Street. And I would probably start by saying that it's easier to contact our office by phone or by walk-in, and you will be referred directly to someone to talk to at that point in time. We have our service that's open from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m, and we also have a weekend service that's available from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And those details have been posted previously on the Mildura Rural City Council social media pages, as well as Mallee Family Care. I guess the first thing I also want to say is that you may not be directly affected or impacted by the recent flood event, meaning your home or your business might not just be affected, but it might be the ripple effects that occur as well. And that's also important to acknowledge. We offer a mental health and wellbeing support program that deals with all ages, so children are also being referred into our service. And some of the things that we are seeing at the moment that you might not think is an issue, but it could become problematic later on. And I guess we also normalise what's happening for people across our community that have been impacted by the flood event. So those things to watch out for, you might be having sleepless nights, you might be having an interrupted sleep, you might feel that you're not really interested in food or eating, you might notice that your children are making commentary about how their carers or their parents are being affected because of their own observations about what's happening out there in community as well. So they might be little signs, but they can lead to bigger things, and our best advice is to get in early so we can support you early. From there, we've got other supports available, because what we've also been hearing from people who have been impacted in their homes is people have lost a large amount of their personal records. So they don't have birth certificates, they don't have their licences, and we have a free community legal centre that can also support people to access legal documentation. Or you might be involved in a registered matter at the court that you might need assistance with as well to work your way through. And we also have a financial counselling program which works really closely with our mental health and wellbeing team, because we know that once the finances start to impact an individual or a family, it can lead to ongoing mental health pressures as well. So if you're struggling financially, if you've got a fine, if you're being pressured by debt recovery or banks or utilities, we can intervene there on your behalf and take some of those stresses away. So I guess the best thing to do is get in early, seek our support, and we will be here for you, working alongside you for the long term as well.
Thanks, Teresa. I think there's some really key messages there that when you find yourself going through an emergency situation or emergency event, it's sometimes some weeks after before the actual reality kicks in.
That's exactly right.
And while we're keeping the day-to-day life can be seem like it's normal,
Yeah.
the actual sometimes that the impact of this situation, it's important to be aware of that because it does impact you, and normal things may become far more difficult. So that's probably an indicator to seek that support, and it's great to have that available through Mallee Family Care.
That's right, Mum.
All right, over to Daryl to talk a little bit about where we're headed with levies and how we're responding to, I guess, removing some of the levies, but also the process in terms of opening our roads up and so forth. So over to you, Daryl.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. So the community may have seen some action around some removal of sections on some of the levees that were built as part of that flood response. Really, that's around just preparing us for when we're able to open the roads up. So, and just point out a couple of locations. Obviously, along Curitin Avenue, Eddie-Wanda intersection, Benetook, down near the Homestead along Curitin Avenue as it heads towards Apex Park, and also the extension of 11th Street out along Regina Avenue. So they're certainly locations where we've started removing those sections of the levees. Now, there will be signs that say the road is still closed, and even though the community might see that there's no longer any water on the roads, what we've got to do is make sure we do inspect the roads, and on the surface they look okay, but underneath the material's still quite wet. So we've got to make sure that they can support the load of the traffic, because the last thing we want to see is someone drive down there and obviously the road gives way and there's a concern for their safety. A couple of other things we're trying to do is, as soon as we can, open those roads up, because we are conscious that people want to get in and start recovery. They want to clean up their properties. They want to collect and remove all that flood waste. So we are certainly recognising that that is a real concern for the community. So as soon as we can open those roads, we will. We just ask people in the meantime just to adhere to any road signage, so road closed, or if it's road closed, local traffic only, please respect that. It's only there for your own safety, so again, we'll try and do that as quickly as we can. The other point I just want to make, Martin, is around about the flood waste removal, and obviously there are properties which would have significant waste that needs to be removed. So Council's working hand in hand with Emergency Recovery Victoria around a waste cleanup process, and what will happen, and that'll be posted some further details on our website quite soon, and likely to kick off around the 30th of January. So it'll probably start up around the Colignan-Nangelock area first, and then it'll progressively work downstream over the coming days after that. The plan will be, obviously, through a contractor through Emergency Recovery Victoria, to collect the waste from the curbside, so they won't enter people's properties, but people will be required to put that out on the roadside. In the meantime, and again, this will be a free service, and it is really around flood impacted waste, so not waste just general that hasn't been impacted. But in the meantime, if people want to take their flood waste to our landfill, Mildura landfill, they can do so free of charge, but we just ask that they pre-register by ringing our council office to make arrangements, and that way there's no issues when they turn up to the landfill with the waste. We know that it actually is from an impacted area from the floods.
Thanks, Daryl. One of the questions I think it's probably quite prevalent is the disposal of sandbags. So obviously there was a lot of sandbags given out, which means there's a lot of sandbags out there. What's the process for I guess disposing of, or particularly sandbags that have actually been flood affected as opposed to those that haven't?
Yeah, good question, Martin. So any sandbag that has come into contact with flood water is obviously flood waste, and that can be disposed of at our landfill free of charge. Sandbags that haven't been in contact can actually be reused if the property owner wishes them to be, or you can dispose of the sand on your garden or on your lawns, and obviously dispose of the bag appropriately. There is information on our website and also Emergency Recovery Victoria as well about the particular details if they want to look at that further.
I guess the important message is there, if the sand has come in contact with flood water, the likelihood is the flood water is of a toxic nature because of it's come through a whole lot of area. You don't know what's in it. It can be quite potent in terms of its toxicity, so it would be important to dispose of the ones that have been flood affected. Don't store the ones that are flood affected, because that might become a risk down the track.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, and that's the reason why it's disposed of free of charge at the landfill, because at least we know it's secure in that location because of the potential contamination.
All right, thanks. And there'll be more to come on that. I guess there is a keenness, I guess, for a lot of people to do their clean up, and it's probably a bit of an emotional and a stress relief once you've got in there and you've cleaned up and you're getting back to normal. That's a really significant part of the process. So we do want to get that happening as soon as we can, but we need to do it safely and when the flood waters was to do that. Our next speaker is Andrew Millen. Andrew's going to talk a little bit about the health impact of the flood waters and what we can expect over at this current phase of the floods with a lot of standing water around. What does that mean for particularly mosquitoes?
Thanks, Martin. A lot of people will be returning to their homes shortly or in the distant very quickly, and there's a few things that we'd like you to be conscious of before you enter your home. The first things is about mould that may or may be present in your property. With respect to houses that have had more than 2 days worth of flood waters either through them or next door them, adjacent to them, it's likely that there will be mould in the property. The way to recognise it, and it's not easy to recognise with a untrained eye, is that it can appear black, green or white stain or a smudge on the walls, or a simple discolourment within your house. Mould can trigger natural responses from the body. It can be something as sneezing, you could be coughing, you could have respiratory type illnesses. So you need to be very mindful of yourself and your families when you're returning home. Drying at a house that has been flood affected, there's a number of things you should be doing. And the first thing is make sure you wear appropriate PPE. You wear a hat, gloves, boots, long sleeves, long pants, so you don't come in contact with any of the mould or any of the things you're fixing or trying to work through. So the first thing is to make sure that yourself and your family are safe. There's a number of ways to remove mould and to remove products and household items. If they're flood affected or damaged, effectively you need to remove them. You can't always wash things and make them new again, so you need to be able to remove these items from the house, and that can be done through the process of the recovery phase. Quickly talking about the household items, those that don't get removed, there's a number of items that would remain in the house, so you need to disinfect those. You need to do it thoroughly and again use the appropriate disinfectants. Leave time for the disinfectant to work, then you clean your surfaces. Not just flood affected areas, mosquitoes are obviously an issue in our municipality now. With respect to the number of viruses that have been identified, the standard beat your bite responses, wearing loose fitting clothes, wearing hats, using the proper repellents, all those sorts of things assist in you not getting bitten by mozzie. They're not discriminatory, everybody can be bitten. There are some people that have little welts that come up, there are other people that can get quite sick from attracting a disease. So we're asking people dawn and dusk to probably limit your outdoor activity so that you reduce the ability of being bitten by a mozzie. The other thing about water around houses, mozzies love waters around houses so they can breed. So as you can, to remove that residual water, it's a very good idea to do. The final thing I really want to talk about is sewerage overflow. and that could be from your septic system, it could be in the wastewater or the flood waters. So it can have harmful bacteria, and it can occur around your house, under your house, in your house, and it can occur from blocked or damaged pipe work. It can also occur where the system has been damaged or has overflowed. Generally seek expert advice from Council's Environmental Health Department or your plumber if it's a septic system. However, generally it's about really tidying all those items up, those that are getting thrown away, that get thrown away so you don't have the bacteria, or it's just that normal process of cleaning, disinfectant, wiping down, making sure things are then safe and sanitary.
Thanks, Andrew. There's a fair bit of information there that they've gone through. Where can people find more
Get that. Could you?
More people? Where can people get more insight into the procedure for cleaning and so forth? There's a fair bit of info there.
There's a fair bit of information on Council's website. There's there's many pamphlets that have been prepared by Emergency Services Vic and the Recovery Agency, and they'll be on the website. And also Council's Environmental Health team have quick cheat sheets and information that we can make available to residents.
Thanks, Andrew. I guess the other important message there that there may well be vulnerable people that are finding themselves in that situation, so it'd be important to look out for them because getting that information to them and providing support or access to support would be really important, because the expectation of that level of cleaning and so forth is going to be quite difficult for someone, particularly an elderly person or one of your relatives. So it would be important to keep an eye on them and perhaps talk to them about getting support through the various services. And I guess the message there is contact council if you think there is someone in that spot that needs some support. I'll now hand over to Angela, who's the Director of Recovery, our Regional Director for Recovery Services, to give us a bit of a update from the statewide perspective.
Hi there, I'm Ange Carey, Acting Regional Recovery Director for North West Victoria with Emergency Recovery Victoria. I'm here today to talk to you about some of the services and supports that ERV can offer you as you work your way through your recovery journey after the 2022 floods. ERV works across all levels of government to make sure communities have the supports they need to recover after a disaster such as the floods we saw in October last year. Part of what we do is to coordinate with other government agencies to make sure that we're all working together on the same page to give the best possible recovery outcomes for communities like yours. Some of the supports and services we can provide include helping you find a place to stay if your home is damaged and uninhabitable and you've got no other options, helping you clean up your property that's been damaged, some financial support to help get you back on your feet, and of course, mental health and wellbeing support, because going through a disaster is a very traumatic thing and it takes time and energy to recover, and you can't do it on your own. Our flood recovery hotline is there to connect you to the supports you need. The best way to get in touch with our team is to call 1800 560 760. It's open 7 days a week and someone will be there to take details of your specific needs and connect you with the person who can provide the best support for you. In the meantime, ERV and other government agencies will work with Council and the community to understand what the longer term recovery goals are for Mildura and District, and we'll work with Council to put plans in place to make those happen. That number again to call for your own recovery needs is 1800 560 760. Please get in touch and make sure you get the support you need.
Thanks, Angela. And a lot of that information is obviously available on Council's website and references too, but you can also go to the Vic Emergency website that would give you links into various bits of information there. So that's the end of this update. The update will remain on our social media and other other mediums for you to review. Again, if you do have any feedback, please put them in the chat and we'll endeavour to answer those questions or include them in future updates. We'll continue to provide these updates as we move through the, I guess, more into recovery, and hopefully you're finding them useful. In the meantime, on behalf of all of us, stay safe and we'll see you next time.